Noah arrived on Tuesday ahead of schedule, wearing identical clothing, the same sweatshirt and tape-repaired footwear. He remained outside the headquarters entrance for a full minute before knocking, as though granting himself a final opportunity to flee. Keller opened the door before the second knock occurred. Timely arrival. Excellent. Enter. He guided Noah through the primary space, which appeared quieter in the afternoon illumination, and proceeded to the rear workshop. The area was enormous, capable of accommodating 6 motorcycles and a truck, with equipment suspended on pegboards that appeared organized with military exactness. The atmosphere carried the scent of fuel and opportunity. "This is lucky," Keller said, gesturing toward a lean man in his 40s whose forearms displayed weathered tattoos and perpetually grease-stained fingernails. Lucky was hunched over a Harley engine, his hands working with the assurance of someone who'd reconstructed countless motors. Lucky straightened, cleaning his hands on a cloth that may have once been white. He examined Noah with penetrating eyes that had witnessed excessive hardship and insufficient compassion. "The boy will assist with maintenance and arrangement," Keller explained. "Demonstrate what requires attention." Lucky grunted. "Cleaning tools are in that corner. Begin there. Once finished, I'll explain our parts classification system." Keller departed, leaving them together, and Noah commenced working. He swept as if his survival depended on it, systematic, comprehensive, reaching areas that likely hadn't seen cleaning equipment in months. Lucky pretended indifference but observed carefully. The child didn't take shortcuts, didn't voice complaints, simply labored. After 60 minutes, Lucky summoned him. "Do you possess any knowledge about engines?" "No, sir." "Stop addressing me as sir. It makes me feel elderly." Lucky retrieved a cardboard container filled with bolts, washers, and miscellaneous metal components. "These are engine elements. They became mixed when Razor toppled 3 containers like a clumsy beast. I require them classified by dimension and category. Bolts grouped together, washers together. Can you manage that?" Noah indicated agreement and positioned himself cross-legged on the cement floor, emptying the container before him. Lucky returned to the Harley while monitoring the child peripherally. What he witnessed astonished him. Noah didn't merely classify, he systematized, establishing neat arrangements, aligning items by dimension with a precision suggesting a mind that sought structure within disorder. After 20 minutes, Lucky approached and discovered the components arranged superior to his own capability. "You're skilled with manual tasks," Lucky remarked, his tone notably gentler. Noah glanced upward, and momentarily his protective barrier faltered. "My father previously repaired vehicles before." "Before what?" The barrier immediately restored itself. "Before his departure." Lucky understood better than to press further. He'd discovered through difficult experience that certain narratives emerged in their own timing, if ever, and that patience held more value than interrogation. "Well," Lucky said, "if you're interested, I can instruct you in fundamentals, engine mechanics, disassembly procedures, reassembly techniques. Could prove valuable eventually." Noah's eyes illuminated as though someone had activated a switch. "Truly?" "Indeed, but only if you maintain attendance and effort." "I will. I give my word." The workshop entrance burst open and Moose Joe entered. A massive man in his 60s with a white beard and a leather vest adorned with patches chronicling decades of travel. He'd served as the club's vice president until his son's death 8 years prior from an overdose, though the genuine killer had been a foster system that shuffled the child through 7 residences in 4 years until he ceased believing anyone would support him when he fell. Joe had heard about Noah and heard sufficient to reopen ancient wounds. "Keller mentioned you walk home along Oak Street," Joe stated directly. Noah stood quickly, shoulders tense. "Yes, sir. I'm traveling that direction." "I'll accompany you." "That's unnecessary." "I didn't inquire whether it was necessary." Joe's voice combined gentleness with firmness. "Collect your belongings." They walked silently for 2 blocks, Joe's heavy footsteps contrasting with Noah's quiet ones. "Do you enjoy the workshop employment?" Joe finally asked. "Yes." "Lucky's instructing me about engines." "Lucky's a quality person. Unrefined superficially but dependable." Joe paused. How's your education progressing? Adequate. Do you have companions there? Noah shrugged, which communicated everything. They turned onto Oak Street, and Noah's pace decelerated. The yellow residence stood 4 houses down, its chain-link barrier corroded and tilting. Through the window, Joe observed movement. A large man pacing agitatedly. That's your residence, Joe stated, already knowing the response. Yes. Who's inside? Clive. My foster guardian. Is he home frequently? Noah's jaw clenched. Sometimes. Joe watched the boy's physical demeanor transform as they approached closer. Shoulders curving inward, head dropping, hands vanishing into pockets as though attempting to minimize his presence. Noah, Joe said softly, stopping one residence away. If circumstances ever become severe, I mean genuinely severe, contact this number. He retrieved a business card with the workshop's telephone number written on it. Anytime, day or night, someone will respond. Understood. Noah accepted the card, examining it as though it were unfamiliar. Why are you doing this? Joe's throat constricted. He'd witnessed someone drowning once while society remained passive. He wouldn't permit a recurrence. Because you requested employment instead of charity, Joe stated instead. That requires courage, and courageous people deserve supporters. Noah nodded slowly, securing the card deep within his pocket. Thank you. See you Thursday, son. Joe waited until Noah entered before departing. His hands clenched into fists. He extracted his phone and contacted Keller. It's worse than our assessment, Joe said when Keller answered. That residence feels wrong, and the child's terrified of entering. I'm aware, Keller responded. I've already initiated some contacts. We're going to record everything: times, dates, observable injuries. Construct a case. And if that's insufficiently rapid, Keller's voice became cold and rigid. Then we address it our way. 3 weeks passed, and Noah had integrated into the workshop's rhythm. He arrived early, remained late when permitted, and absorbed everything Lucky taught him like a sponge. His hands had developed new calluses, and something different appeared in his eyes now. Not quite hope, but perhaps its distant relative. Thursday evening, Noah was deeply engaged in organizing carburetor components when the headquarters door slammed open forcefully enough to shake the windows. Heavy footsteps reverberated through the main space, followed by a voice that made Noah's entire body freeze. Where is he? Where's the child? Clive Henderson occupied the doorway between the headquarters and workshop. 6 feet 2 inches, 220 pounds, with a dringer's broken blood vessels across his nose and fury simmering in bloodshot eyes. His work shirt was untucked, stained with something that could have been mustard or something worse. Lucky positioned himself in front of Noah instinctively, wrench still gripped in hand. May I assist you? You can stay out of my affairs, Clive snarled. That's my foster child, and he's returning home immediately. Noah hadn't moved, couldn't move. His breathing had become shallow and rapid. Keller emerged from the office, moving with the calculated composure of someone who'd confronted worse threats than an intoxicated, angry man. Mr. Henderson, Noah's work period concludes at 6 o'clock. It's currently 5:30. He'll return home when his scheduled time completes. I don't care about his schedule. He has responsibilities. I didn't authorize him being here. Actually, Keller said, his voice level and frigid. His caseworker approved the work program. I possess the documentation if you'd like to examine it. This was false. No documentation existed. But Clive didn't know that, and the confidence in Keller's voice made him hesitate. This is nonsense, Clive spat. You people believe you can simply take in strays, fill his mind with ideas. He has obligations. What kind of obligations? Keller asked, advancing one step forward. Specifically, Clive's face flushed darker. That's between me and the child. Is it? Keller took another step. Behind him, Razor and 2 additional bikers had appeared from the headquarters, forming a barrier of leather and muscle. Because from my perspective, Noah appears here with fresh injuries every several days. His caseworker hasn't visited in 3 months, and he recoils whenever someone elevates their voice. So I'm genuinely curious about these obligations. Clive's hands curled into fists, but even intoxicated and angry, he could calculate. 5 men stood unified behind Keller, whose calm military bearing communicated more than any verbal threat. "You're ignorant of the situation," Clive said, but the fire was diminishing. "The child's clumsy, falls frequently, and perhaps if he wasn't such a failure, I wouldn't need to." He caught himself, jaw snapping shut. Wouldn't need to what? Keller's voice could have sliced glass. Clive pointed at Noah. "You home in 1 hour. Don't make me return." He pivoted and stormed out, slamming the door forcefully enough to make the frame shudder. The workshop remained silent. Noah stared at his trembling hands. Lucky crouched beside him. "Hey, you're safe." "He's departed. I should leave," Noah whispered. "If I'm not home." "Not yet." Keller retrieved his phone. "Joe, come here immediately." 20 minutes later, Moose Joe walked Noah home again. But this time Barker followed on his motorcycle, circling the block slowly, making his presence obvious. When they reached the yellow residence, Clive was visible through the window, pacing and drinking from a bottle. "You don't have to enter," Joe said quietly. "I must. If I don't, he'll contact the caseworker, claim I ran away. Then I'm sent to a group home, and those are worse." "How do you know that?" "Because I've been in 3 of them." Noah's voice was flat, emotionless, reciting facts. "This is number 4. After this, they cease attempting to place you. You just cycle through until you age out." Something fractured inside Joe's chest. "Son, it's acceptable. I'm accustomed to it." Noah managed a weak smile that was somehow more heartbreaking than tears. "Thank you for the employment. It's been positive." He walked to the door, and Joe had to physically restrain himself from grabbing the boy and placing him on the back of his motorcycle. But abduction didn't help anyone. There were regulations, procedures, systems that had failed his own son, systems that were failing Noah. Joe contacted Keller the moment Noah was inside. "We're out of time. That individual's going to harm him severely and soon." "I know. Meet me at Tina's Diner." Tina's Diner was a modest establishment on the community's edge, the type that served breakfast continuously. She'd been feeding the rust fangs for 15 years. She poured coffee before they even sat down. "Heard about the foster child. How severe is it?" "Severe," Keller said. "We need to act quickly but legally. I have a contact at Child Protective Services, but she requires evidence, documentation, something concrete." Tina nodded slowly, thinking. "What's the child's surname again?" "Collins. Noah Collins." She disappeared into the rear and returned 5 minutes later with a dusty cardboard container. "I was reviewing old employee records last month for tax purposes. Discovered something odd." She retrieved a file with a name written on the label. Emma Collins. "She was employed here," Tina said. 20 years ago. Waitress. Sweet young woman, barely 20. Became pregnant, had a baby boy, continued working approximately 6 months after his birth. Then, she snapped her fingers. Vanished. Never returned. Never collected her final paycheck. I contacted the police, but they said she probably just moved on. Single mother, no family. Happens constantly. Keller's blood ran cold. "Do you recall the baby's name?" "I don't, but I remember she had a photograph. Kept it in her locker." "Let me check." Tina rummaged through the container and retrieved a small faded Polaroid. A young woman with Noah's eyes holding an infant wrapped in a blue blanket. On the reverse, in looping handwriting, "Noah, for months, my entire world." "Jesus," Joe breathed. Keller extracted his phone and photographed the Polaroid. "Tina, I need copies of everything. Employment records, dates, anything about when she disappeared. Do you think something happened to her?" "I think," Keller said slowly, "there's a reason nobody searched very diligently when she vanished, and I think we're about to discover why." Outside, Barker's engine rumbled past, still circling, still monitoring the yellow residence on Oak Street. still ensuring that tonight, at least, Noah wouldn't face the darkness alone. The investigation progressed faster than anyone anticipated. Keller's contacted CPS, a sharp-eyed woman named Melina who owed him a favor from his Marine Corps days. Fast-tracked Noah's case the moment she saw the photographs Joe had been quietly documenting. Fresh bruises appearing with alarming regularity, the way Noah held his left arm close to his body on Tuesday, the split lip that hadn't been there on Thursday. But it was Emma Collins's disappearance that exposed everything. Tina's employee records provided them dates. Keller's lawyer friend located the original missing person report filed by the diner, closed within 48 hours with a 2-sentence conclusion. Subject likely relocated voluntarily. No evidence of foul play. Nobody had interviewed neighbors. Nobody had checked with the hospital where Noah was born. Nobody had asked why a devoted mother would abandon her 4-month-old son without taking a single possession. Molina investigated deeper and discovered Noah's intake documentation. Clive had claimed he'd found the baby abandoned at a gas station. The social worker called him a good Samaritan willing to foster. Clive had been Noah's only foster parent for 12 years, moving from county to county, always staying just under the radar, always with glowing initial reports that deteriorated into nothing. He's been trafficking that child through the system, Molina told Keller, her voice shaking with rage. Collecting checks, moving before anyone investigates too closely. And Emma Collins didn't disappear. Someone made her disappear. I'd wager my career Clive knows exactly what happened. The emergency hearing was scheduled for Friday morning. Noah had no knowledge of it. He appeared at the workshop Thursday as always, quieter than usual, moving stiffly. Lucky pretended not to notice the way the child winced when he bent down. Are you all right? Lucky asked, keeping his tone casual. Yes, just slept incorrectly. Lucky's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Listen, tomorrow you have the day off. Something came up. Did I do something wrong? No, son. The opposite. Just trust us. Okay. That night, Moose Joe didn't just walk Noah home. He walked him to the yellow residence, waited until Clive answered the door and said clearly, I'll be here tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. Noah has an appointment. Clive's eyes narrowed. What kind of appointment? The kind that's none of your concern. He'll return when it's completed. For a moment it appeared Clive might argue, but Barker's motorcycle was idling at the curb, and Razor's truck was parked across the street, and Clive was intelligent enough or intoxicated enough to recognize a losing situation. Whatever, he muttered. Yanking Noah inside, Joe's hands trembled the entire ride back to the headquarters. Friday arrived cold and bright. Joe collected Noah at 7 o'clock sharp, Clive watching from the porch with eyes like flint. Noah climbed onto the back of Joe's motorcycle wearing the same sweatshirt, the same tape-repaired footwear, confusion written across his face. Where are we going? Courthouse. There's someone who needs to speak with you. Noah went rigid. About what? About whether you want to continue living in that residence. The silence stretched for 3 blocks before Noah spoke again, his voice barely audible over the engine. Do I have a choice? Yes, son. For the first time, you do. The hearing felt interminable. Molina presented evidence. Photographs, medical records from school visits, testimony from teachers who'd seen things but never reported them. Clive's lawyer attempted to fight back, but crumbled when Molina dropped the file about Emma Collins on the table. Your client was the last person to see this woman alive, Molina said coldly. And somehow, 6 months later, he miraculously found her infant son abandoned at a gas station. I'm recommending a criminal investigation. And until that's resolved, Noah Collins is being removed from his custody immediately. Noah testified for 15 minutes, calm, clear, honest. When the judge asked him where he wanted to go, Noah looked at Moose Joe sitting in the back row and said, with them, the Rust Fangs. They're the only ones who ever gave me a choice. The judge, a woman in her 60s who'd presided over too many broken children, granted emergency temporary guardianship to Joseph Moose Joe Mancini, pending background checks and home evaluation. Clive was escorted out by 2 bailiffs, screaming about rights and lawyers. Noah didn't glance back once. The headquarters assembled a bedroom in 2 days. They cleared out the storage room, painted the walls, installed a solid bed. Tina purchased motorcycle-themed sheets. Lucky hung a pegboard. Barker brought a desk.by Sunday. Noah had a space. Not much, but his. That evening, the club gathered in the main room. Noah stood awkwardly in the center, still not quite believing any of this was real. Keller raised a beer. To the child who walked into a biker headquarters asking for employment. You have courage, Noah Collins. And now you have family. To family. The room echoed. Noah tried to speak, couldn't. Something hot and unfamiliar burned behind his eyes. Later, Joe found him on the front steps staring at the stars. Are you okay? Noah thought about it, really thought. My mother. Do you think we'll ever discover what happened? I don't know, Joe said honestly. But we're going to try. And whatever we find, you won't face it alone. Noah leaned against Joe's shoulder, a gesture that would have been impossible weeks ago. Thank you for seeing me. Joe's throat closed up. Thank you for being brave enough to walk through that door. Inside, Noah's homework was pinned to the corkboard next to the week's ride schedule. His drawings, careful sketches of motorcycles, were taped to the refrigerator. In the workshop, Lucky had labeled a toolbox with Noah's name. The system hadn't saved him. A caseworker hadn't saved him. The school hadn't saved him. A child asking for employment and a group of broken men choosing to be better. That's what saved him. And sometimes that's exactly how family is born. Noah didn't need heroes. He needed someone to see him. And sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you're born into. What would you do if a child walked into your life asking for a chance? Share your thoughts below. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Don't forget to subscribe to Embrace the Journey for more stories that prove kindness can change everything. See you in the next video.